Welcome everyone to the Dr. Abs Healthcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Abasolo, aka Dr. Abs, and on today's show, we have author, athlete, nutritionist, and expert on fixing digestion, Wade Lightheart. Wade is a three-time Canadian national all-natural bodybuilding champion who competed as a vegetarian, former Mr. Universe competitor, host of the Awesome Health podcast. Wade Lightheart is one of the world's premier authorities on natural nutrition and training methods. Having majored in sports science at the University of New Brunswick, he has authored numerous books on health, nutrition, and exercise, which have sold in over 80 countries. Wade also serves as an advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute and is the co-founder and president at BioOptimizers, a digestive and health optimization company. He's been in the health industry for over 25 years, coached thousands of clients, and is sought out by athletes and high-performance-oriented individuals worldwide for his advice on how to optimize their health and fitness levels. I'm really excited to hear everything Wade has to say about your gut and digestive health. So let's get on to the Healthcast. Welcome to the show, Wade. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Amazing, man. So happy to have you. I'm really excited about today's topic. You are an author, an athlete, a nutritionist, and an expert on fixing digestion. So that's actually where I want to focus. I want to focus on the gut and just all the amazing things that can happen to our bodies when the gut is acting right and functioning properly. So let's get right into it. What do you say are the 5 stages of digestion?
Yep. So the first stage is taste, touch, sense, smell, and prepare your food. So for example, if I say dill pickles and sauerkraut, a lot of people will have a salivary response in their body. That's their body actually being prepped. Or if you smell your favorite meal or something that you don't like, there is a physiological response to our sensory organs, how things look, how things taste, how things touch. And that's why if you go to fine dining places, they really emphasize those components to create, quote unquote, a dietary experience.
The atmosphere.
Exactly. Yeah. And and ideally you want to be in a rest and relax state as opposed to, a fight or flight, which is where most people are eating, staring into their computers, listening to their audio, watching their television, being.
I've been guilty of that before.
We all
eating standing up, like got to get back to patience. Yeah.
All of it. Second, so then after that, we're masticating the food which is also kind of a sensory experience, particularly people like texture and taste and what that is. The food then travels down the esophagus into the stomach. And the stomach really is, you can categorize it into 2 parts. It's the upper cardiac portion of the stomach, which is where the food will be for the first 30 to 60 minutes. And this is where originally the enzymes present in the food would start to activate and break down that food. However, humans don't eat enzymatically rich food anymore. Unlike every other species on the planet, which eats, if I'm a tiger, I eat zebras, I go get the entrails,
heart, kidney.
Yeah, they get the enzymatic components, the high components, and they eat the carcass. And if I'm a bear, I could eat a berry and a salmon. If I'm still in a raw, enzymatically rich state, if I'm a herbivore like a horse or a cow, I'm trying to find the sprouts. All of those concordant is enzymatic levels, and we'll get into what all that means in a bit. Then in what happens after that is hydrochloric acid is released by the body. And after that first 30 to 60 minutes, and that has 2 particular functions. Function number 1 is to disinfect the food from the bugs, the parasites, the pathogens, the viruses, all that sort of stuff. Everything that can cause problems in the body.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any pathogen. The second thing that hydrochloric acid does is it changes the pH of this food chyme from alkaline or neutral or slightly acidic into highly acidic. And as it's changing that pH, some enzymes are going to become activated and some are going to be deactivated because of that pH. And they're pH specific enzymes, which are concordant with breaking down different sugars, different fats, and different proteins.
Gotcha.
After that, what happens is the body will release bicarbonate buffers, which is a fancy name for alkaline minerals, which will
Okay.
buffer the acid before that food chain enters into the intestinal tract. Now, the reason it does that is because the stomach can handle high acid, the intestines can't. If that doesn't work out, what happens is you get little pits of acid going in, and this is where you get duodenal ulcers and things like that, where the acid starts burning holes in your intestinal tract. Definitely don't want those situations.
Yep.
Conversely, what's an interesting point, since acid reflux is so common, it's very misunderstood and misdiagnosed in the medical community, is almost always they see acid reflux and heartburn as not enough hydrochloric acid, or excuse me, it's too much hydrochloric acid, when in fact it's generally too much, or not enough, not enough. And I got a little test for all of these things. And basically what happens if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid in that secondary stage, what happens is the food starts to ferment and the gas pops open the little esophageal sphincter at the top of the esophagus, and some of the acid that's present will come up and burn the esophagus.
Yeah.
Just like if you don't buffer the acids properly, some of those acids will leak in the intestinal tract and burn. So if those sphincters aren't working right, or there's not the concordant components, you have problems. When the food enters in the intestinal tract, you have 3 different types of bacteria: the good, the bad, and the ugly, or 10% good, 10% bad, and 80% opportunists. And we live in a symbiotic relationship with these bacteria, and they're often called probiotics. And they produce, basically, without them, we'd be dead. They manufacture the kernel of food into energy. They create all sorts of enzymatic reactions. They create the polypeptide chains that make our neurochemicals. They're enrolled in part of our immune system function. It's a very interesting ratio between these organisms. And then the final stage is the elimination of whatever's left over. All of that's controlled by what's called a contraction of the smooth muscle tissue that pushes it through the food through. So where we run into problems is in several different areas for people. And why I'm saying this is because right now, the 13% of the emergency hospital visits right now are related to gastrointestinal related conditions. That's people going into an emergency ward. The statistics say that 100 million people are suffering from some sort of digestive stress on any given day in America, with 25% of those on permanent prescription medications.
Jeez. What are we doing, man? What are we doing to ourselves?
Yeah, many of which were designed, like, for example, proton pumps for acid reflux, which are designed, according to the medical literature, for 4 to 6 weeks, and you get off it because the complications from staying on these things, are really impactful.
Yeah.
Then we have antibiotics, which can disrupt their microbiome.
Yep.
Not properly eating food. We run into all these problems of not having an enzymatic rich diet. Dehydration, which contributes to not the ability to produce hydrochloric acid. Hydration is a key aspect to that. And then we have sitting, which we sit a lot, which can cause impingement on different aspects of our spinal compression. And that will cut off electrical supply to individual organs, gallbladder, liver. We can also get the body starting to push up with hiatal hernia. So sometimes for acid reflux and heartburn, it's not because of the lack of production of hydrochloric acid. It's actually, you're actually having your intestines are actually pushing up into the cavity, which are forcing the acid up into the esophagus, which can be corrected through surgery. So those are the big problems that happen for people. And for most, we've kind of become accustomed to some sort of digestive distress, but it's not enough to take us out of the game. But what we don't realize is we're taking damage over time. And if they're not addressed, you end up with all of the problems simultaneously, oftentimes, and a ride to the intestinal tract, and they're cutting out a piece of your organs, or something really horrific.
And what's like the biggest thing? So all that amazing information, how the body works, how digestion works, like what's the single biggest thing someone can do to actually fix their digestive issues?
Yes, great question. The evidence the simplest thing to do would be controlled eating windows. So if there's one thing that costs nothing for people to do, intermittent fasting. And the reason that is the single cell layer in your intestinal tract that when perforated causes a syndrome called leaky gut. Harvard just came out with a paper talking about that virtually everybody has a certain amount of leaky gut. I was just interviewed with Dr. Stephen Gundry, the author of the Plant Paradox.
Yep.
He talks about this issue. There's all these medical doctors and researchers are saying this was kind of like this kind of nefarious, kind of weird pseudoscience idea 10 years ago. And now they're all coming forward. No, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
So with controlled eating windows, the benefit is you have enough time for your body to repair any damage. And you are also less likely to eat too many of the inflammatory products. That's the easiest thing to make positive changes.
And what do you recommend as far as the intermittent fasting? Like what kind of windows are we talking about? Or what's the ideal window if there is one?
Well, I think results are as easy as noticeable in 12-hour windows.
12 hours, okay.
At least 12 is the minimum.
At least, okay.
And for most people, the easiest way to do it is start at 12. So let's say you eat from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And ideally, you want to shut down your eating before you go to sleep 2 to 3 hours before, because that really disrupts deep sleep.
Okay.
And then you can start shrinking that window down as your body acclimatizes to it. And for most athletic people, a 4 to 6 hour window is usually sufficient.
4 to 6. I'm usually sticking now to like a 16-8 window, but I mean, I've heard of people doing like 4-hour windows.
What I find is the more athletic you are, the more you work out, the harder it is to maintain that window. So I think that most of the literature is done with people who aren't hard training athletes. That's why I think they're better with a little higher window than a lower window.
Yeah. And you had mentioned obviously a lot of enzymatic activity in the gut, but I feel like a lot of people, they try enzymes, they try probiotics, but for whatever reason, they're not getting results. Why is that? And do you have any recommendations as far as those key supplements that we should be taking in order to fix any type of gut issues that we may have?
Yeah. And unfortunately, we suffer from what I call the Me Too product movement. And what that means is some great research will come out of labs or come out of science. And there's a bunch of unscrupulous companies that'll come in and throw in a white label bottle of whateverness that says, I have this probiotic or I have 10 probiotics or whatever. And so I would, to approach this topic appropriately in a structured manner, the easiest thing to do is, number one, look at your genetics. Which diet is going to be likely more suitable for you, or which foods could cause problems? Number two, get a gut map, test, a Viome test, something like that. So you can look at the species that are in your body, which ones you have in an overgrowth, which ones that you are deficient in. And then number three, you would want to add high quality probiotics, which are related to your deficiencies and concordant with your diet, with the appropriate amount of prebiotic foods to allow the support and growth of those over time. That is the ultimate strategy as far as picking the right probiotics for yourself and your individual. And when you do that, it's magical. It really makes a big difference for people when you get the right probiotic. And the right probiotic for you might not be the right probiotic for Mary or for Jim.
So what is it exactly that these tests are checking for? Like what markers are we trying to see? And I guess, how do we know which probiotic fits our body?
Yeah, great question. So in the first part of genetics, and I would say it's sister science, which is getting more traction, is epigenetics response. So genetics is kind of like the gun, and epigenetics is pulling the trigger, if you will. Okay. And so what you would look at, let's say your ancestors grew up on a diet that was an Asian type of diet. You're going to probably do better on carbohydrate foods like rice. You probably will metabolize soy very easily. You may have trouble with things like potatoes or red meats.
Okay.
And so you'll start seeing some overall trends, or where you could run into complications through your genetic history of your body doesn't process these type of fats, or doesn't process these type of carbohydrates. Now, concordant, when you do a gut map, because most of us have been subjected to massive amounts of antibiotics, either directly from medical intervention or indirectly through the consumption of foods that have probiotics, or from the consumption of foods such like plant products, which probably contain Roundup, which was originally designed as an antibiotic, and they damage our microbiome. So we need to discover which species have been wiped out for you, which ones that you're not able to metabolize foods. And you can get feedback. The old school way, we just track how we felt. Do I feel bloated and tired after food?
Yeah.
Do I feel great? And that's the old school. And I still believe of recording that information and then cross-correlating it with scientific data, so that you associate your observational feelings with the scientific data that entails it. The other thing is, you might have a predisposition. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to ask you. So like, what can the audience out there like look for? I mean, is it the obvious signs like the bloating, the stomach ache, or those types of negative symptoms compared to, oh my God, this not only tasted amazing, but, I feel light, I was able to go to the bathroom. Like what should people really look out for when it comes to that? Great question.
Number one, how frequently you are taking number two. So you should be able to have good transit times of your food.
Is there a normal like amount, or?
Yeah, in my opinion, it should be meal in, meal out.
Meal in, meal out.
And if you're functioning optimally.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, the second thing that you would look at is bloating is usually the first indication that something's not working. And for women tend to be much more conscientious of that than men. Men are more likely to report bloating as, oh man, that was a great meal, where women will more likely report something's off here. So you need to kind of re-regulate what that might be.
Okay.
The third thing would be brain fog. If you're waking up with a lot of crust in your eyes, a lot of brain fog, bad breath a lot, and stuff like that, usually you have undigested proteins in the body that's leaking into the system. And then the next piece would, I think, in more advanced state of dysbiosis and dysfunction, you usually end up with skin conditions. So people who have uncontrollable skin conditions, usually you either have severe dysbiosis in the gut, or some sort of pathogens which are really disrupting your gut health.
Gotcha. No, that's actually so interesting. And what would you say as far as like the supplements, like a combination of supplements that would address those types of issues?
About 90% of people will be solved by a combination of a high quality enzyme formulation correlated to their dietary choices. And I'll explain that in a minute. If you're over 35, probably going to benefit from hydrochloric acid tablets. So, after meals. Okay. And the third piece would be selecting the right probiotic, or rotating probiotics to see which one it seems to have the best effect in your particular body with your diet.
Interesting. I mean, does it matter like the strains? Because I always see,
yes,
we have 10 probiotics in this one, and
correct,
types of bacteria.
Yeah. So we have a research lab with PhDs in the microbiome out of Europe, who actually do research on how enzymes and probiotics interact inside this, in this intestinal layer, because it's all about converting what you're eating into energy units or building blocks. That's what it is. And the only thing that does that is actually enzymes and probiotics. It's the only thing that does the work in the digestive system. What I would say is this: when you're selecting for probiotics, if you're not doing a gut map or a biome or something like that, and there are some questions of whether that's grasping all of the probiotic strains, so it's not 100% exact science. I want to be clear about that. It's getting better, but we're still learning more and more all the time. Generally, you would want to select, there's probiotics that are built for immune system support. There are some that are built for cognitive capabilities. In other words, particularly for neurochemical formation, which is a lot of people have challenges around that. And then there are other ones which are really great for the repair of this intestinal wall, provided they have the right materials in order to do that.
And that's for the leaky gut.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's how we categorize. We build products in each one of those categories for the various issues that people have.
Gotcha. No, that's super interesting. And what about that? You were talking about the gut map or like the testing. Can you recommend a particular one so people could see exactly what's going on in their system?
Yeah, a simple GI map or a Viome test is a great way to start. Your naturopathic doctor, there's a couple other ones that they might recommend. Usually different naturopathic doctors will have their particular favorites that they like to go by.
Gotcha.
And if you overlay that with a genetic test, which you only have to do once, well, now you're really going to start to hone which ones are going to be best for you. And so you spend a little money up front, but now you're going to dial in your diet exactly for you and the probiotics that would be best supportive of you.
Amazing. And just a little bit of background on you, Wade. What's your diet history been like? Because I mean, obviously there's so many diets out there. You know, you got the keto, the paleo, the vegetarian, vegan. You know, there's so many to choose from. You know, I've seen the debates on social media, the vegans versus the carnivore and the keto, and it's like everybody's fighting, saying who's right or wrong. So what's been your history like, and what do you eat today?
Yeah, I've had a very radical history, as I think most of us in this space will experiment for.
Yeah.
I grew up eating, it wasn't meat in a meal. It was like, what is that? So, rural Canada, growing up, hunting, fishing, all that sort of stuff. So I lived, and my mom was an organic gardener, which we thought she was crazy back in those days. And she turned out to be right.
Oh yeah.
So that was interesting. So I was kind of an omnivore until 20 years ago. And I decided to do a 2-week experiment with vegetarianism.
Okay.
I went 2 weeks, and then I went 2 weeks again, 4 weeks. And then I went another month after that, and then never ate meat again. Now,
really,
inside of that, I'll take a couple caveats. That's a lacto-ovo vegetarian. So I will have eggs, or I will have some dairy products. I tolerate both of those products very well. And it's not that I didn't like meat. I did. I love chicken and fish, and I love, steaks, rare at the time. Seemed to work okay for me.
Oh, wow. Rare.
Yeah. So I had this kind of weird, I'm probably a little bit more versatile dietary, but as I went on a plant-based diet and a plant-based performance diet, early on, back 20 years ago, as I tried to attempt winning bodybuilding titles, the only option that we had for protein was whey protein, and not very high quality. And that ended up wrecking my digestion after the Mr. Universe contest in 2003. So I got done the universe. I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. And I met a doctor who started to teach me about the role of enzymes and probiotics in relative to digestion and health. He said, "Hey, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. I'll teach you how to build the body inside out." Long story short, I went on a raw food diet for 2 years started real. So that was a raw vegan diet for 2 years, which was really good. I think for the first year, the first 6 months particularly were extraordinary. I think from a detoxification and rebalancing my microbiome.
Yeah.
After a year, there were some limitations. Socially, terrible. But also I felt as an athlete, there were certain limitations that were really hard to overcome at the time. And so I went about it over the last 20 years is figuring out how to optimize the performance on a plant-based diet, using these other tools in the toolbox that I have. Yeah. And my business partner is a ketogenic guy. And so to answer the bigger question is what diet is right for you? Well, the only diet that matters is the one that's right for you. So it's N of 1.
Exactly.
And a little bit of genetics, a little bit of experimentation, and a little bit of lifestyle choices with some good professionals inside it. And you should be able to dial that in for yourself without buying into dietary tribalism. And Matt and I are actually releasing a book We got a bidding war between some publishing houses on this very topic.
Very cool.
For next year.
Yeah, congratulations. So, I mean, what do you feel? Because I feel like the diets all over the place, the supplement industry. So I want to focus on, the supplement industry now that we're talking about probiotics and enzymes. Like, what would you do to fix the nutritional supplement industry? Because like there's so many products out there.
Yep.
A lot of them, don't do your body any good. A lot of them are, bogus. What do we need to do to fix that industry?
Great question. First and foremost, every single company in this industry needs to back their product 100%, in that if someone takes that product and it does not deliver the result that their marketing, their copy, their sales rep, whatever says, the customer gets their money back. That should be standard number one. And if a company is not willing to engage with the client on that level to de-risk for them, I would question the validity of that company. They don't believe in their products.
Yeah.
We do that. 360 people have a whole year. They can return their product if it doesn't work for them.
Empty bottle, the whole nine.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's step number one. Step number two, I am hoping one day that we'll be able to get some sort of ethics in the industry standard. And it's a very hard thing to implement, but we may get there at some point in time in order to produce it. Unfortunately, most of the standardizations that are implemented in the industry are not really for the nutritional quality and content and safety of the product. They're more about creating red tape to put pressure on supplement companies in the production of high quality products through special interest groups in the pharmaceutical industry who don't want people to get healthy because it disrupts their medical model. And so we have an ass backwards way of looking at how we regulate.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, and I'm part of this movement. I've been in the industry for a long time. And that is, as companies really spending time on a couple of areas. Number one, picking the area that you feel that you can offer something that's superior to everything else in the market class, a higher quality. And then also advocating for other companies in the products that they use, which work, that you don't have to go and produce. There's plenty of market. So for example, I bring lots of supplement company owners that products I use and love. I don't try and copy their product. I tell people to say, hey, I take this person so-and-so because they've done a great job. And I want to let you know that this is a trusted brand. And so amongst the best brands, we tend to get along, and it's a small industry at the top.
Yeah.
And then there's just a wash pit of just Me Too products. And you can usually tell companies that have a long-standing reputation usually stand the test of time.
Yeah. So your company, BioOptimizers, correct?
Yes.
Talk about, just to finish off here, talk about or highlight the supplements that obviously you swear by, you produced, and that you feel are going to help out, everybody in the audience.
Sure. So our first product that we ever produced was a product called Masszymes, and it's on its third generation. It's a high proteolytic enzyme. In other words, it's probably the most complete proteolytic product out there in the enzyme space. And I don't say that, I'm not being facetious about that. Basically, it's 17 different types of enzymes and enzyme enhancers, with over 55% of the formula is of an array of 5 different proteases, and then it has all these other things. It's probably the all-in-one enzyme that has the most universal aspect. And
so that'll help you break down fats, carbs, protein, the whole nine.
Fiber, sugars, you name it. It's a really all-in-one. Then we have kind of specific branches, which is for ketogenic people. They'll do better on Capex than maybe on Masszymes.
Which is what?
That's a proteolytic with a 4-phase lipase. So it's a much more expansive lipase enzyme profile.
For the fat.
And has no focus on carbohydrates. It also has some bile enhancers and also some transport mechanisms to help fats get utilized by the mitochondria, because there's 3 different phases of fat transport. And if you're not fat adapted, particularly in those early stages of the ketogenic diet, is very, very helpful around that.
Yeah. I'm actually I'm doing a pretty much keto right now. So that seems like one that would be suitable for me.
You notice it. I use it just because I like the energy metabolism of it. My body doesn't metabolize fats very well. And that was the big debate between Matt and I. He did really well on fats. I did really good on carbohydrates, and we battled this out for years. And then he came up with Capex to help me with that.
So for example, like Masszymes and Capex and, all the other line of enzyme products that you have, like what could somebody notice, like a before and after, talk about like the benefits?
Lack of bloating, number 1. Number 2, smooth and regular bowel movements. Matt likes to say
everything's getting broken down.
Everything's getting broken down, and you see it, you feel it, you do that. And then the third thing is, usually with extensive enzymatic usage, people notice an improvement in their recovery, and the literature is now showing the healing of wounds, the recovery from sports performance, all that sort of stuff. Contusions, bruises, damage to the muscle tissues. So proteolytic enzymes are pretty profound in those areas.
And question, so a product like Masszymes, what is the dosage? Like how many times are you supposed to take it? Is it before specific meals?
Generally, rule is 1 to 5 caps before you take a meal, and that's varying on size.
Each meal. Okay.
Yeah, like if I was having an apple, probably not that big of a deal. If I'm having a 2-pound steak, probably would want 5.
You're going to need some work done there. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So we got the enzymes covered. I imagine you have an amazing probiotic product.
We do. We have 3 different types.
Okay.
The one that brought us to fame was a patented strain. So we worked in conjunction with Dr. Michael O'Brien to take an aggressive strain of L. plantarum, which is a very aggressive strain. And what they did is they put this in a toxic soup, ran a sine wave through it, and about 2 or 3% of those will survive that soup. And what happens is those species actually mutate and develop new characteristics. And then you grow them on specific mediums, and they start to proliferate. Now, I'm not allowed to legally state in this current environment what that probiotic actually does.
Okay.
Even though it has a patent, because it would shut your site down, how powerful it is. But I will say this, I am not concerned by any viruses in my body because of it, and as well as any potential complications from spike proteins.
Noted.
Right. So that's a really great one. And then that's immune support. I haven't been sick since I started using that 17 years ago. Anytime I get a sniffle or anything goes on, I just take an extra handful and it's gone. And it is undefeated against food poisoning. And we have at least 100 examples from Matt and I personally of people that were suffering from food poisoning. They take a handful of this and 30 minutes later, they're fine.
Wow, that's amazing.
We call it the Navy SEAL probiotic.
So you talked about a probiotic, you talked about the enzymes. Like what is, like, I imagine, do you sell these in combinations where, hey, this is the basic package that you need in order to, recover from any gut issues that you may have, or, maybe you have a stronger set that, for people with serious issues take?
We do. By the way, I answer all of the questions that have come through to Bioptimizers, and we've condensed those into, I think now it's just over 8,000 different answers that I've put for specifics with individuals. So they can reach out to our customer support team. If I haven't answered that before, that message goes directly to me and I help you navigate that if I can, or send you off to one of our concordant functional medicine practitioners that can help you dial in on the more serious medical type conditions, because I can't help everything. But the easy combination is Masszymes HCl breakthrough, and probably L. plantarum. If you are more someone who suffers from anxiety and low mood, probably you'll do better on cognibiotics. And if you've got someone that's diagnosed with leaky gut, you would do Leaky Gut Guardian.
What about somebody with like skin issues? What would you say there?
So skin issues for the most part are usually a lipase related issue. So almost every single issue that we see coming up, whether it's if it's brain fog, usually it's a proteolytic enzymatic issue. If it's skin conditions, it's usually a lipolytic, it's usually fat enzymes. And if it's like blood sugar management, it's usually some sort of carbohydrate on like an amylase type enzyme. And so those are the generalizations. Now, people who are looking to say your final point, people who are looking for a total integration of whatever, then we do have things like a 90-day gut reset where we'll put everything from, intestinal cleansers, anti-parasite products, enzymes, probiotics, HCl, and we also guarantee that works. And we find that for most people who have serious dysbiosis, and a lot of people do, you need 90 days of a solid diet that's supportive of your needs and the combination of these things to reset. And then there's a kind of magic. It's like everything kind of gets traction, and then you need far less supplements. And I think that's a better way to go at it than for most people.
So as far as like total recovery, 90 days, but could people feel the benefits fairly quickly?
A lot of people almost instantly.
Wow.
We'll see that in the first 2 weeks, people are like, wow. The first month, if they haven't noticed a result, it's probably not the right product for them. And that's why we say, hey, we'll give you your refund back.
Yeah.
And then by second month, it's like, okay, this is undeniable. And by third month, it's like, oh, I really feel awesome. This is what a good gut feels like, and that's really exciting when I see those people. Amazing.
Wade, before I let you go, I just want you to take over the platform, let everybody know about BiOptimizers, any social media handles that you got going on, and let the audience know how they can find you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first and foremost, I want to be clear. You cannot supplement your way out of a bad diet. I want to be clear about that.
Preach.
We give away the Awesome Health course, which is it's a 12-week, 7-step course that I learned and developed from all the people I learned in order to do that. You can get that on our website, bioptimizers.com, or anything like that. We've got the Awesome Health podcast, is where I, interview different types of experts and go through the kind of the nuances. And then, Instagram, Facebook, all that. My team handles most of that, and you can get through to us from those things. And anybody who actually listens to this, they can get a 10% discount by putting in Dr. Abs Healthcast 10. And they will get a 10% discount on all our products. And of course, they all have a money back guarantee. So if it doesn't work for you, if you don't like it, no problem. You just refund your money. But I would encourage you to reach out and ask us so that we can give you some insight on which product might be best for you.
Yes. Everybody's unique out there. So we gotta get them the one that works for their body. So that's Dr. Abs Healthcast 10 for the discount code, everybody. So Wade, thank you so much for coming on. I thought you were a wealth of information, specifically on the gut and how important digestion is. So I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this healthcast.
Thank you very much.
All right, buddy. Take care and have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.